Hello, welcome back to CS170, week 3. This is the last lecture for this week. This is going to be covering web searches. I think there was a lot of content for this week, so even though I'm saying this is the last lecture, I think I'm going to probably put out something else to kind of go through some examples, some more examples of different things. But hopefully I did do some examples as we went through on each of the lectures, so hope you find that useful. Main thing with all these things is you go out there and try it yourself, and that should help you to get a good understanding here. So here we are in chapter 5. So basically web searches, and I'm going to go through a couple of things with that. Hopefully those things should be fairly straightforward. So here we are, web searches, and these are the concepts that you want to make sure you get a handle on. So not as much as some of the other chapters, but you should be able to pick these up. So basically how a web engine searches, how a search engine works is you almost think of basically like a dictionary or a catalog where you can look things up. So how do we build that up? There's people making changes, adding new web pages all the time. One of the biggest search engines around would be something like Google, right? But there are other types of search engines. But the idea being is whatever search engine you're trying to build up like all these dictionaries or lists of different pages and what's in those pages, what are the major ideas in those pages, such that if I had to do a search for a particular topic that I'm interested in, I'll go and find them. Okay, so that's the general principle. Again, we're kind of talking about Google, but there are other types of search engines. Okay, so first thing you have is what they call crawling the web pages. So there's different processes that are constantly out there scanning pages, updating the rankings of these pages, so that when I go and do a search for a particular topic, it'll try to match based on the rankings, like what they think would be a good page for me to look at to answer my query. Okay, so these crawlers will go through the pages. It'll analyze the content, right, and then store it into an index. Okay, and then once you have this index, there's going to be a whole series of things to rank these pages, and presumably the best pages will work its way up to the top, right? And then once you have all that built out, then for you to answer your query quickly, you'll put in a query and it'll go against all of these indexed pages and ranked pages. Okay. So this little bit of a link here, you can see the link. It's a YouTube video. You can look at that a little bit more to basically cover what I just mentioned in terms of how the search works. Okay, I think I've mentioned in earlier lectures with respect to HTML, one of the key things there is how to make sure your page is ranked well, right? Generally what you've probably heard of in the past, something called search engine optimization. Okay, so you want to put different bits within the page. If I just type whatever, like some text onto a web page with not much formatting or anything, just very basic. Yeah, okay, I got something out there, but really from a search engine perspective, probably not too many people is going to hit your page. There's going to be so many other pages that is going to rank higher than your page. So you have to do a little bit more to get your page ranked higher, right? And one aspect of it is within your HTML. So we kind of described this before. I mentioned the title, right? So you're going to have something in there that gives it some sort of description, not only for the users to understand, but really for the page ranking algorithms to rank your page better or match it better to whoever's looking for that title. So if you wrote something about baseball or you wrote something about Rutgers or whatever, you would put that in there. Hopefully that helps to increase a little bit. Now the other thing you remember, we talked about the anchor text, right? So within here, again, you want to try to put in something that helps describe what you're linking to, right? So again, let's say you're doing something about a president or whatever. You put that in there, the name of the president that you're talking about. Again, if I'm doing a search for that president, let's say, it'll come up. Okay. Same here for meta, right? This is your metadata. Here, it's kind of free form. You can put in like all kinds of stuff. It's almost like when you guys post up to whatever, right? Post up to Facebook, post up to Instagram or whatever. You're tagging it. You're putting all these different tags, right? It could be like the different subjects or the people that's in the page or picture or post, something along those lines, right? And then alt. This is for when you do a picture. Okay, so you want to have some description that talk about what's that picture about. Okay, so all of this is really going back to the concept of information that helps the search engine rank your page higher. Okay, there's other ways to rank your page higher, which we'll get to. Okay, so here you're talking about this is what happens after you go through all of these different things. You see these names here, and then there's like indexes associated with them. Okay, so let me come over here. And so when I do my searches with these tokens, so basically it's and everything, right? So if I just type in human powered flight, it basically implies there's an and in here, right? So there's a human and powered and flight, okay? So this is the first token, which will be the human. Token 2, powered, and then flight, token number 3, right? And then it's looking for cases where they overlap, right? So you can see for the first token, you got this rs.org, rs.org, rs.org. So that's what's in common across these 3 tokens as it's searching them and pulls them all together, right? So that's how the search would work. Okay. So this is something that you're going to be probably tested on, and something you should try to understand. It's really trying to look at these queries and map them out to like these Venn diagrams here. Okay. So you have all these circles which would indicate the search. So forget about these 2 down here, but if I did a search for human, right, all the things that would come back from that search for human, all the web pages, let's say, that would come back from the search for human would be this circle right here, right? And same thing for powered, and same thing for flight, okay? So human and powered and flight, right? So it's a logical and. So you want to have all 3 of them. Where do they intersect, right? So that's why you have this Venn diagram where all 3 of them will intersect in this little shaded area here, okay? So that's what you would shade in if I told you what do you think the results would be. If you say human has all of these web page results, powered has all these web page results, and flight has all these web page results, what's the intersection of all 3 of them? It's this shaded area, okay? So probably for the exam, you might have something like, we'll show you the Venn diagram and saying, you know, what is the query that would pick up this shaded area, right? And then you would come back and say human and powered and flight. Okay, I hope that makes sense to people. All right, now the other thing that you look at in terms of data sets or sets of data would be this OR. So you're joining based on OR. So it says human, or powered, or flight. And the logic operator is OR. The way I like to think about this, every time I see an OR, I kind of almost think about it like, let's say I'm going to search for that by itself. So if I see OR, human OR, then I say, okay, what would it look like if I just search for human, right? It would just look like this, right? Without these other 2 things here, the powered or flight, if I said, what do you return for human? It would be this entire circle, right? This whole shaded area. By the same token, if I did the same thing for powered, it's this entire shaded area. And then the same thing for flight, it's this entire shaded area. And so that's why when you see the whole Venn diagram, all this entire area is all shaded, right? So that's what happens when you do an OR, right? So I like to think about it as each one query individually. What's the shaded area, right? And then you just put the three of them together like this, okay? So first one we do is and, now you have or. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, so now you're gonna combine things. So you got the human and powered, and then you have the or flight. So same three circles again, but notice what it says, or flight. So this is where, again, I would think about flight if I queried it by itself, which would be this entire circle here, right? So that covers this part with anything that's doing with flight. Because it is or, I'm taking everything within the circle for flight. Then you say human and powered, right? So human and powered, so where they intersect, this is the remaining bit to be shaded in right here. Okay, so this is how we mix together human, powered, and flight, where you have human and powered as an and then you have an or for the flight. Okay, hopefully again that makes sense. And so here we're using quotes. So we the people, you're looking for that together as a set, right? And then you have the or and the Constitution, okay? So you're basically searching specifically under these quotes like that. So that's what it means when it says words in the same order as within the quotes. So if you listed them like differently, then it doesn't care. It could be anywhere. It could be separated with a whole bunch of other words. You're looking specifically for these three words together. Okay. This one is what they consider a more complex query. Before you were talking about and or, now you have this not clause here. So let's say I want to search for Tigers, but I don't really mean the baseball team for Tigers. So then you would put a minus in front of it. While we're on this one, let me do a search for this. All right. So let me do a search. I'll do let me do Tigers, and then I'll do a minus baseball. Okay. And let me do images so it's easier for you to see. Okay, so you can see all the tigers came up. There's none of the baseball tigers that came up. Right, so that's what you get with the not, this negative sign that's in front of baseball. Let me change the baseball to be animal. And now you see we've stripped out all of the tigers that are animals, and you've got basically the tigers that are baseball. You got Tiger Woods here too. Okay, so hopefully that's a demonstration of the minus or the not for you. So more recent times, you've got different, I mean, Google's always changing, like the search algorithm, page rankings, they're always tweaking it a bit. But in more recent times, with the more dominance of the mobile platform, you see things where if it's better for mobile friendly design, it'll get a better page rank, right? So it's just mentioned here, Google did it in 2015, followed by Bing. All right, so it just looks at the web page. Is it going to show up nicely on a mobile phone? If it does, then it's get a better page rank, right? And the way it goes through the page rank, like I said, it's going to be kind of tweaked on a regular basis. A little bit proprietary on how it does the page ranking, but that's one factor in addition to the other ones I mentioned earlier in terms of how you tag the page. Okay. Instead of typing all of like these complex queries at essentially the command line in the search, you can go into Google Advanced Query and you can do that right here. Right, so you can put in like a little bit very complex queries for your searches within like the advanced search for Google. So you see that up here. Okay. Another big thing that kind of came out with Google is how to increase your page rank based on your relationship with other pages. Okay, so remember we did the hyperlink in one of the earlier lectures for HTML. So the href, so that points, let's say you wrote your page here, page A, and you're referencing page B, right? That increases page B, right? So ideally you want a whole bunch of other pages pointing to your page. They think that maybe your page is kind of important, so your page rank will go up. Yeah, so this again, same thing, right? Page A, page B, page C, right? All of them are pointing to yours. The more pages you get pointing to you, the more important your page becomes from a Google ranking perspective. Okay, now let's say you're also not only getting links or references from like normal pages, but some very popular pages, high ranked pages. So in this case, you have Apple page and Caterpillar page. Both of them are pointing to you. So since these two are considered like authoritative sources or high ranked sources, them pointing to you implies that your page is probably pretty important, should be high ranked also. Okay, so these are the basic things to help your page increase its ranking in terms of the search algorithms. There's others, but like I said, those are constantly changing all the time, and it's proprietary to Google. Okay, so here's the things that we covered. You covered the crawlers, the multi-word searches. Like I said here, the important thing is to figure out those different combinations and how they map to a Venn diagram. Okay, and then you have these things that was coming from your HTML and how you would add stuff in here, metadata, to increase your page ranking or just people understanding what's in your page. Page ranking, we just covered how you're going to increase the ranks for your pages. Yeah, here's the advanced searches, the logical operators, combining them. Okay, filtering was the not with the minus. Okay, and that's it for this lecture. Thank you.